Hi everybody and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles, and on this episode, we're going to talk about the most recent WWE releases. As I'm recording this, these releases just happened yesterday, and I wanted to come in here and talk about it because a lot of times when wrestlers get released, you hear the negative, oh, maybe it should have been this guy. Why'd they wait so long? They never did nothing with this guy. This guy never did anything. This girl never did anything. I want to give this a positive spin. I've done this before when they've done mass releases, and I want to say I'm not 100% surprised with any of these. It's not anybody like they didn't release Randy Orton, okay? And this isn't a knock on any of the wrestlers, and again, I want to do this as a positive spin. These are all wrestlers that for whatever reason just never really had anything to catch on to. So we're going to start off with the Authors of Pain and Paul Ellering. Now Paul, I'm pretty sure Paul Ellering is going to go back into retirement, maybe come out for special appearances for the Authors of Pain if they have a big match somewhere that calls for a manager that, I don't know, that maybe he's needed for that, or I could see him doing something maybe with his daughter. But I think Paul's going to just go ahead and retire. He was already retired, I believe, when they brought him back for this run. And this one, out of the releases, this was the most surprising because they've had the most, I don't know if you could say the most recent push on TV, because there's someone else we're going to talk about on here as well. But they've been a part of the Karrion Kross segments and the Karrion Kross crew, so a little surprising. As far as the Authors of Pain themselves, I think there's something there. There's definitely a look, and I don't think they've ever been one of the better tag teams in the world. Let's just put that out there. But when you're that big and you have that look, I don't think you need to be the Motor City Machine Guns or Fraxium. I think just being that big and being able to do some power moves should carry you over. For the Authors of Pain, this one's kind of tricky because I don't see him going somewhere like TNA because of the ties with TNA and WWE. I think they'd be a little bit bitter working with people there, and I might be wrong on that. That could be their destination. I also don't see them in AEW because realistically, you put them in there with a team like Private Party, and it doesn't look right. It doesn't look like Private Party should ever have a chance. Even a bigger team in AEW, like the Gunn Brothers, are tiny compared to AOP. So I don't really think they fit into the AEW style. Where I do think they fit, and I know this is going to sound like I'm taking them and putting them somewhere where they're going to be quote-unquote irrelevant, but I think they can both help the company, and I think that's where they would fit the best, and that's the NWA. If you haven't been watching the NWA, in full disclosure, I'm not 100% up on what they do there myself. I do catch some of their shows, I do catch the general gist of it, but the NWA hasn't had a problem with pushing wrestlers of this size. Think about Tyrus and what they did for him. So them coming there, I think that would be a great fit for them. They can help bring a little bit of a name value to some of those NWA shows, and it gives someone that the fans know that just came off of TV on their flyers. So I think that would be a great fit. I don't know that the Authors of Pain are ever going to come back to a WWE or go to AEW. Maybe New Japan. New Japan might be a good fit for them, but I think that New Japan style again is a little bit different than what they have. Maybe All Japan or Noah, that's possible, but for me, I'm thinking NWA for them. Now our next wrestler, Blair Davenport. For her, this one, I kind of see a clear path for her, and she's formerly known as Bea Priestley. I see her either going back to Stardom, where she was a pretty big star in Stardom, or continuing on in TNA. I think she's someone that would want that connection to WWE still, that she'd want to go back to WWE. She was with AEW for a little bit and never really caught on. Plus, they had the whole pandemic thing, so there's that to be said about it. And also, elephant in the room, her ex-boyfriend, Will Ospreay's there. I don't know if there's any animosity between them, but, you know, it may not be an optimal fit, is what I'm saying. I think she goes to TNA, rebuilds her brand, and maybe comes back to WWE in 2-3 years from now. I could easily see that happening. I could also easily see her working with some of the crossover talents from NXT that she's already worked with previously when they come into TNA and being that bridge there. So for me, I think that's the path she would want to take and the path that'd be best for her. or going back to Stardom, obviously. Now, next up, this one was another one that's surprising because she's been on TV a lot lately. And as a matter of fact, as recently as the Royal Rumble, she's been in a WWE ring, and that's Sonya Deville as part of the Pure Fusion Collective, which hopefully that means that terrible name goes away. I'm a little bit shocked at this. This is one of the two more shocking releases to me. Just because she's done everything that they've asked and done everything they've asked well, whether it be GM, whether it be a wrestler, whether it be tag team, solo, I think she has that talent there. Another thing that kind of, I hate to say this, but she's probably the most out front and outwardly visible of their LGBTQ plus wrestlers. And I don't think that has anything to do with her release. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that. But she's such an advocate that it almost feels good to have her on the roster, even if you really don't have much to do for her. Now, where I see Sonya going, I obviously think she's a perfect fit for AEW. She would slide in there, and I think the skills that she has, with the mic skills she has, she could easily be a top tier wrestler there. And I already know what you're going to say, that AEW doesn't really take care of their women's division. I get that. I really do. But I think someone like that on the roster could really help to elevate that, especially if they give her a faction and she's a mouthpiece for some of the younger wrestlers, or maybe some of the wrestlers that don't talk so great. Have her be the leader. I think it's a great fit for her. I could also easily see her going other places, but for me, that's where I see her going. And I don't know if she's been released. I just know that they said that they were not going to renew her contract. It was a little bit different, so I have no idea how much longer her contract has, but it could be a month, it could be a year, it could be a decade. That's something you'll have to ask Sean Ross Sapp about. Now, last but not least, the one I saved for last, because he's the person that had the most potential out of all of these wrestlers, and someone coming out of the Cruiserweight Classic looked like he was going to be a big star, and that's Cedric Alexander. Now, full disclosure, I am going to mention this here. I used to work on a podcast called Live from the Armory. We had Cedric Alexander on the show several times. He was a friend of the show. Very nice guy. Very engaging. Very entertaining. My personal views on Cedric, which I think he's amazing as a human, have nothing to do with what I think of him in the ring. And when I think of him in the ring, I think he's great. Matter of fact, and this is just pure coincidence, this just happens to be the shirt I was wearing today. There's a match in PWX of Cedric Alexander versus AJ Styles that's one of the better matches I've seen in the last 20 years. And I'm talking, I'll put that up against Punk and McIntyre in Hell in a Cell. I'll put that up against Omega and Okada. It's an amazing match. And you've seen it. When given his opportunity, Cedric shined. Now this one, I have a place for him, and most of you guys are probably thinking the same thing that I'm going to say. He's a no-brainer fit with the Hurt Syndicate. Obviously, he was part of the Hurt Business. So I do think AEW is his destination. However, if you remember, there is a huge bridge that needs to be made between AEW and Cedric. And that bridge needs to be Tony Khan sucking up some pride, and he may not even want Cedric. That could be a whole other thing because of this. If you may not know, Big Swole is Cedric Alexander's wife. And if you remember, Big Swole's exit from AEW didn't go so well. There was some back and forth between her and Tony. So to get Cedric there, I do believe there needs to be a fence that needs to be mended. I think there's a bridge that needs to be fixed. I honestly think Tony Khan needs to suck it up and go, hey, I am so sorry about what I said. I know it came off very insensitive, and I'm not going to repeat it here. You guys probably remember this. But it wasn't very flattering what he said about Big Swole. So that fence needs to be mended before Cedric walks through those doors. I do think it's going to happen, but for me, that is the one thing that I could see stopping it from happening. But I'd love to see him there. I think the Hurt Business storyline to me, and the Hurt Business on AEW, has been one of the real bright spots. Them, obviously Swerve is always a bright spot for me. The stuff that Hangman Page is doing is very interesting, and I always think that AEW is more interesting when Hangman Page is one of the main characters. And he's doing some very interesting stuff. The Death Rider stuff, I have the same opinion that all you guys have. It's not working. The Adam Copeland cope thing, that's not working either. Jericho stuff isn't working. But that Hurt Syndicate stuff, that works. And it's an easy fit, and he has an easy in. Let's say you do Hurt Syndicate versus Death Riders in Blood and Guts, and Hurt Syndicate needs a fourth member. There you go. Right there. It makes so much sense. Especially if you want to pivot. I know right now Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin are tag team champions, but if you want to pivot from that and make Cedric and Shelton the tag team, which they were a great team in WWE, and pivot Bobby into the main event picture, which at this point I don't see why you wouldn't, because obviously he is one of the most compelling people on the TV. I think it's a great fit. Like I said, there is a massive issue that needs to be resolved before it happens, but I think he does end up going to AEW. But overall, that's my opinion where I think these guys are going to go and women are going to go. Let me know what you think. Do you think they're going to go to the places I think they might? Do you think maybe something else works for them? Could you see Sonya Deville going over to Stardom, which I could see that. That's be awesome. Could you see Cedric Alexander in a Noah ring, or working just independents like Defy and CZW? Do you see the Authors of Pain maybe showing up in AEW, where I don't see that as an option? Let me know what you think, where you think they're going, where you think about these releases. Let's try and keep it positive. Remember, ultimately, this is 6 people that lost their jobs, and that's not ever fun. Even if you didn't like them as performers, it's not fun on a human level. To anybody that's ever lost their job, you know exactly what it feels like. But I digress. Let's smash that like button, share the video, subscribe if you haven't, all that fun stuff. If you see where it says join, that's how you become a member. That definitely helps me out. It also helps if you go to the page and click on the shop link and look at some of the products and maybe purchase one of them. I get a commission from each purchase that's made from those clicks. Also, you'll probably see in this video in the description, I'm probably going to link some products there. If it's something you're going to buy anyway, why not buy it through my link? You get what you were going to get anyway. I get a little bit of a kickback. Makes everything better for all of us. With all that being said, and I know I'm rambling here, my name is George Coles, and you've been watching Heel Heat.